So I want to start off at this stage in your illustrious career. You have created memorable characters, been involved with so many projects. What makes you say yes to a project?
If I start to read it, and I'm not reading just like I'm reading the Times, but every time it comes, like, my character is speaking, something ignites and I start to have just an emotional reaction, then I know it's organically touching something in me. And so then you go to you're on page 40 and it's still all good. You just start praying, okay, don't say nothing stupid. Don't be insulting, not only to my intelligence or my history, but nobody else's. And then I just pull for it. And yeah, so it has to be there in the script. That didn't happen this way. It was quite a different way around, but that's how I usually choose to go to work.
Well, let's talk about this way because obviously you're not only in this with a recurring role, you're an executive producer on the project. So how did that all come together?
Well, I was introduced to Arnold Pinnock through our dear friend, mutual friend, Nesta Cooper. And Arnold had been conceiving and working towards this, putting a Porter on the screen for 8 years. And so by the time I came in, they were all together. Our showrunners, Anne-Marie Murray and Marsha Green, our executive directors, Charles Officer and R.T. Thorne. Everybody was in motion, and I came in because I think they really just wanted somebody who they had looked at all of their lives on screen to say, I see you. And yeah, this is your moment, and this is what you do. And let's mark this moment. Let's recognize, let's have a recognition of who we are right now. And of course, I was going to be like a stealth kind of fairy godmother consultant, but I'm so nosy, and I kept in it with Arnold. And so they said, okay, well, you should be one of the producers. And it wasn't until months later that they said, and I was very supportive, and I believe in them. They are so impressive and good, each one of them, at what they do. And the fact that they came together and they had said to me through their whole careers, they had only been the only Black person, or maybe one of two Black people on a production. And because they were a Canadian group. And I was like, how is that possible? But it was like, okay, now we're really going to do this. This is a recognition of this moment. And it is a nod to our ancestors and everybody else that has ever looked at each of you and said, I see you and I believe you can do it. So then they asked me to take a small role. The one that they suggested was a little too upstanding for me. It was like, if you're gonna get dressed up, you want to show up. And so I said, okay, I'll do it if you let me be Faye. And they said, Faye? And I said, Faye. And so that's how I came on, because Faye, I'm always interested in people that have life in them and complexities. And as an actor, you want to find and explore the complexities and not play, judgment, and not play like whatever their circumstance is. You want to find who that person is, and the circumstances are part of the plot.
So what I wrote down about Faye is that Faye illustrates wisdom, wants, and needs in conflict, and sort of what we go through with our desires and what we go through to keep things hidden. But she's happy with her life and the status that it has afforded her, especially at this time period. And there was a quote that she said, everyone is always getting worked up about rights that they have no right to. But this is real life and this is nobody's business. So can you talk to me about some of the complexities in Faye and which you loved about bringing to light to the screen with her character?
Well, for my backstory that we created for Faye, this is freedom. This is because it's not in the story at all, but our backstory for her, she was a church girl. She was the daughter of a minister. She did everything she was supposed to, loved her daddy. He, nice man in the church, young man in the church, forcing them into marriage or encouraging them into marriage. She has babies, and she believed the gospel. She loved that community, sense of community and all. Well, it turns out the husband was an abuser, and Daddy didn't stop it. Daddy said, it was that whole, you know, kind of misinterpretation of scripture that, we're supposed to be under their thumbs, or you can chastise your wife. And it went on and on. And so that was the betrayal of her daddy, that he didn't stop it because of the mores of the time. I mean, women had no agency, really, not legally. And so it kept going to the point that this guy, probably drunken at some point, burned down their house with their 2 kids in it. So that's where she came from. So it's like, goodbye church, goodbye all of this. I got to go. And the one thing that she was able to hold on to, she took off, was that she really believed in the gospel of love. She believed that we are all loved, and we give love and acceptance and all. And so I wanted to establish her not as that victim left there, but there is she's arisen out of the ashes of that, and that lesson that she came away with. I don't believe that everybody comes away with tortured and reactive. It's like she had somewhere to turn, and she turned towards joy, and it wasn't about her joy. She realized that the joy was a fact in life. It was part of her spiritual journey. And interestingly enough, the sacred and the secular really intersect at that brothel, because people aren't skulking in there. It's not like a house of ill repute. It's a house of acceptance. It's a house of celebration. People get to choose how they want to, but we're all adults, and so we choose this, and that's what that's what I wanted to establish with that.
Love that. So in wrapping up, one of the things that I love about this series is that it gives us a version of Black history that takes place to the north for most Americans. And it's something that we don't usually cover. It's mostly centered, on the early roots, the African roots of the, to get us here, and slavery period, or we jump ahead to the 60s and the civil rights era, but not with this story. So can you talk to me why it was important to bring this aspect of Black history to our screens?
Yeah, and I wouldn't even call it history, because people freeze up. History is what happened last weekend. That's how real history is. So one of the things I think our group was really able to do well is to bring to life in a way that contemporary people will really identify with all these different characters. And it's important that we tell this story, because we didn't just think ourselves up. So when we say, I am somebody, it's like, you don't have to just say it because you're being reactive to the dominant culture saying you're nobody. It's like, look at who you are. Look at where you come from. Look at what individual people did. Look collectively at what your people did. That's why you are somebody. And so the porters, the whole journey of the porters crossing the country, community to community, sometimes organizing on behalf of the better good, sometimes running those numbers and bootlegging, whatever it is, they helped create the middle class. The middle class in America that we are struggling to hold on to. They are, the Marcus Garvey movement is there, and there's different people on different sides of that equation. It's complex, it's interesting, it's dishy. There's all the singing and dancing girls, and as ambitious as all the girls are now, singing and dancing, and they were dealing with colorism back there. We thought we were past it, but hey, we're still dealing in colorism. But so it is, when we say history, it's our story. It's our story. And who doesn't want to hear their own story? And who doesn't want to hear somebody else's story? It is vibrant and alive. And I know that I love it at my experience age, and my kids in their 20s have loved seeing it. So I think it's something that everybody's going to really want to talk about. So if they don't have BET Plus, they can get it, and it is well worth it. They can keep watching it and all the other things that are offered on that curated streamer.